Welcome back to the Inner Owl Wellness Podcast, where we explore the inner realms within us to create higher dimensions of health and wellness in our lives. And today, I'm so excited. We have a very, very special guest with us in person. Um, this is my good friend. He is a San Diego native. He's a singer, songwriter, poet, philosopher, Rumi lover, non-duality channeler, I might say, and a whole bunch of other things. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. His name is Jose Perez. Jose, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Mazen. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for that
Yes.
intro too, by the
Yeah, finally we were able to get it set up. We had some technical issues to start off, but
way.
we're here now. We're in the midst of this. And I want to start off by noting the beverage that you have amongst us that you're drinking right now.
Oh, this.
Yes, can you show it to the camera please before
Yeah,
we
it's a delicious beverage, I would say.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what this man is drinking right now, he's got his own urine in that cup, in that glass that he is drinking. And no, I am not kidding. It's not apple juice. It's actually urine. So I don't even know where to start with this, man. I guess one way to start with this is, what does it taste like?
Mm. Very it's to me it's like coconut water, but not as sweet. It's like it's got a sweetness. It really depends on what I ingest during the day too, but right now it's kind of sweet. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not what I would think that what urine would taste like. Like sweet isn't the first word that comes to my mind when it comes to urine. And I guess the natural second question that comes to mind is like, why do you drink your urine? Like, how did you even stumble upon that? And like, why do you do that?
Why not?
Well,
No, I'm teasing.
that's a fair answer.
Well, okay, yeah. So why do I do it? And how did I stumble upon it is what you asked?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, let me start off by how I stumbled upon it. Okay. I follow people on YouTube, and I was just kind of during my journey, I was coming across content of people that were drinking their urine, and I thought it was a joke. And the more that I was watching the content, I'm like, no, this is actually, they're real serious about it. So, I just started doing my research, and it led me, and I'm just summating, my journey on this, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it led me to try it out. And so, why do I do it? I find so much value behind it, and it makes me feel really good. That's the gist of my answer,
Yeah.
but we can get into details if you like.
When you say
Mm.
it makes you feel really good, naturally, just being someone who, through human biology, I know that the kidneys filter the urine based on what we don't need in the body, or at least that's the thought behind it. And so when you drink it, like, there's good things and bad things. Like, are there toxins in there besides all the good stuff, like the electrolytes? Like, and like, I guess my question is like, what are the benefits that you get out of drinking urine?
So there's a lot of like information out there that kind of give those benefits, and I'll give some of those. But for me personally, I typically tend to answer according to what I can validate. Right. So I've never done a study on or research or a physical scientific test on my urine, but I'm told that it's 95% water or ultrafiltrate blood plasma, which is essentially watered down blood, and the other 5% is the excess minerals that the body has. So there's not proteins, but potassium, nitrogen, urea, and other ones too. I can't even think of it off the top of my head,
Mhm.
but magnesium, I think. So it's recycling first and foremost. I'm recycling my minerals that are already in my body. Yes, there is a filtration process through the kidneys. It's from what I'm told, and I find that it's more of like a pressure cap when I have to urinate. So it's like I have liquids in me, and I got so much I got to release, right? So I release that, but it's not like a waste. I think it becomes waste when we waste it.
Mm,
So I think that's why it's got that title as waste product.
I see. More of like a perceived label that we place on it, as opposed to just through, thousands of years of acculturation and adaptation, that we just were taught that this stuff is waste. Whereas, like, and what's that quote? one man's trash is another man's treasure. I feel like that fits very nicely into this whole thing. So yeah, like what kind of benefits have you noticed? How long have you been doing this, first of all?
I started in the beginning in January of 2020, so over 4 years, every day.
Over 4 years, every single day. And how
Mhm.
many times a day, how many glasses a day do you have of your own urine?
Um, I would estimate on average about 3 to 5 of these, maybe sometimes less, but it's really about 3 glasses a day at the very least, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so in terms of the benefits, like have you felt anything different? Does your body feel different? I mean, you've been doing it for 4 years, so my guess is that you have felt things. So can you share a little bit about that experience?
Sure, sure. So, I mentioned the mineral, replenishing, recycling, I should say. But when it comes down to the psychology behind it, like, me drinking my own urine, like, is like, I trust myself. I trust my body completely. It has given me, the way I like to say it is, it's helped me reclaim my divinity. Like I'm like in my power. That's the psyche part of it. I would say that it's kept me to regulate my lifestyle and what I ingest. I don't like to say the word diet because the word die is in it. It's my lifestyle of what I ingest
Right.
is it's raw living foods. So I'm tasting that stuff. I'm tasting all the goodness of that. I would say that it's helped me regulate. Oh, I've had too much salt today or something. And that's just one example, but that hasn't been an example for a while because I don't add any salt to my food anymore.
Yeah.
So there's no extra sodium in that sense.
Right.
But I can tell when I have a little bit too much and it's really salty. Yeah.
Right. Right. So just kind of getting a sense of like what's in there, like what is your body processing, like too much salt,
Mhm.
too sweet,
Mhm.
just getting a sense of like what your body's feeling like through
Mhm.
the fluids that it is excreting throughout your body. And there's also a bunch of electrolytes. So electrolytes naturally, I would guess that would give you energy. Like when I take electrolytes, you feel more energetic. Do you feel that way when you drink it? Do you feel like, oh man, I got some energy. I can like move around. Like, is that something that you feel?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. When I first started doing it, yes, I felt that electric charge. Because another thing that they say is that it has a lot of negative ions in it too. So
Mm,
as we're ingesting, it's leaching those positive ions in the body and kind of just taking them out. And I know that there's if you loop it, it's almost like counterintuitive, like, oh, I'm drinking it back in. But I think the body does something magical. Like, I don't know how to explain that part, but
yeah.
I don't think there's ever a bad time to drink your own urine. Like, it's not going to be unhealthy for you. Your own urine, though, your own,
Your own,
because
not someone
it's
else's.
and that there's some thought behind that too, where people say, that people do it. I've known people that have drinking others people's urine, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that too. I just intuitively won't do that, and I intuitively won't offer mine either,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
somebody really asks for it because if they believe that there's a health benefit or some type of value, I would absolutely give if
Yeah.
a piece of myself is what I'm
Right.
doing. But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
but yeah, just to kind of get back to what we're saying is like, yeah, there's just like it's like a biofeedback loop, I think, that the body receives when I taste it again. It goes back into my body, and yeah, and there's so much more benefits as far as topical use. I mean,
Topical.
yeah, yeah. So I wash my face with it every day. In the morning, my routine is this. Okay, so
Yeah. What's your routine?
I wake up, and I read a lot of books, and I brought some with me to show you, and I can show you that in a bit. But nonetheless, my routine is I wake up, my first catch of the day, as we call it. I wake up and go to the restroom, and I have this particular glass, pee in it. I look in the mirror and I speak some affirmations into it, just like we would with water, if you've ever seen that or heard that. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror, reciting my affirmations, and I'm drinking my own water, and I am feeling very powerful when I do that. And I have that energetic boost first thing in the morning. The thing is, though, is that because of my lifestyle, I'm already kind of a high energy in all the things that I do. Well, that was loud.
We'll just roll with that.
Boom.
Yeah.
So,
High energy.
high energy, yeah. So, the thing is, like, I'm already doing, like, I already supplement. and I don't even like to use that word either, but like I add she legit to my daily intake, so that's high minerals. So I already have a lot of high energy from all of the other things that I do. So nonetheless, it's hard to pinpoint like
Mm,
these certain benefits for what's doing what, but I know this is a part of it. I can feel it, you know.
right. It also makes sense that like for those people like who's lived in the desert for all those years and just, food was not as abundant as it is, water was not as abundant as it is today, so you don't come across it as often, therefore urine would be insanely valuable to drink your own urine in those kind of circumstances. So there may be some thinking behind like an adaptation that the body has to like process it in a way that makes sense for the body, because we didn't live in abundance, like I was saying, for our whole humanity.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a mechanism, but also, so besides that, so for thousands of years, like this is actually an old practice,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And you told me it's called Shivambu.
Shivambu
Is
is
that right?
yeah, yeah, I believe that's the Hindu or the Ayurvedic name for it.
Okay.
Shivambu. It's
Okay.
and I think that stems from the idea of like I can't remember exactly, but it refers to Shiva, and I can't remember if it's like eternal life or something to that effect. I don't want to give you the wrong
Okay.
information, but
Okay.
it refers to Shiva, the
Yeah.
Shivambu.
Okay. And where did that practice come from? Do you know a little bit about its origins in terms of like how did people just start doing this?
I don't actually. I don't know the exact origin of it. I just heard a lot of narrative on it, you know, and so I'll say that all the time. And you know, from when we talk, you know, like there's narratives. I can't validate it, so it's a narrative to me. But how they started, I'm not sure. I just know that ancient Egyptians were known to do it from the narrative. Ancient Hindus, you know, Ayurveda, of course. Um, and that's all I really know on the origin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you also touched upon something else that I wanted to get into briefly. I think you were talking about like your diet.
Mhm.
You eat a raw vegan diet. Is that something that you've been doing for a while now, where you're just completely raw, no animal foods, not just that, not even cooked vegetables,
Yeah.
just raw vegetables and fruits? Do you still do that?
Yes. Yeah. It's mainly fruit though. It's like 90% fruit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like
So
a fruitarian is almost what one may call it, and on
close to,
some,
yeah,
yeah.
close to fruitarian, I would say. But you know, and I think we were saying earlier about labels, you know, like
Yeah.
so I don't ever say I'm a raw vegan, and the reason being is because that whole vegan phrase kind of implements it alludes to activism, and
Mhm.
I'm not an activist on it. You know,
I
I'm
see.
all for animals, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm not like active in that realm.
Mhm.
But so I eat like a raw vegan, and for you know the sake of this conversation, yeah, I'm a raw vegan. Um, and for 4 years, I'm sorry, it'll be 4 years in June. Yeah, so I'm very close to that, and it's been pretty strict. However, in December of last year, 23, I intuitively just kind of I got done with the fast, and I just felt like, hey, let's try some cooked food again, just to see what it feels like.
Yeah.
I tried it, and I did it for a month, and quickly, like I knew, like, nah, it's
What
yeah,
wasn't it?
it wasn't. It was like it was great socially because I went to go visit my cousin up in Oregon, and she was so excited. She's
Right.
like, "Oh my god, I needed this, Jose! Like, I needed, you know, to be around this because I'm whenever I travel, I'm pretty strict on everything, you know. So like, I'll buy my own fruit, I'll bring it over there, and you know. Anyway, long story short, I quickly did. I learned that I no, this my journey is all about the raw foods and Shibambu and you know all these forms of alchemy is what or tools for alchemy I'll call it.
So what exactly does your diet comprise of? When you say raw vegan diet, like what do you eat every single day? Is it smoothies? Is it juices? What kind of colors are you eating? Like what does it look like? What does your diet look like?
It's all intuitive. So if I feel lately, it's been mainly avocados. I've been eating a lot of avocados and sprouts. The grocery store has these air dried chips. So technically, I don't know if those are considered raw because it doesn't tell the degrees that it was dehydrated at, so it
Mm.
could be above the threshold, but it's close enough. It's a brand called Brad's Raw, whatever. So
Okay.
I kind of just intuitively like I'll use those as a little treat with my avocados, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
dates and nuts. I'll have fruit, of course. So like lately it's been mangoes. I've been loving mangoes a lot.
Mangoes.
It's seasonals for me, so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever I'm kind of feeling. Like during the winter time and autumn, like I'll have a lot of persimmons.
Yeah.
I'll just eat persimmons just like that. Durian, oh, I love durian. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've been buying on travel. I've been finding Asian markets and just going to buy durian,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'll just eat. I'll eat that as a meal. It's like just so good. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I'll make salads here and there when I feel like it. Like in December when I got done with my fast, I had and it was I think it was before December or around that time, but I was feeling just like I needed salad, so I would eat a salad a day. I was eating like a lot green. It was basically lettuce, kale. I'd put some tomato in there, some onion, and then I'd make my own dressing, which was raw. It was made from cashews, coconut aminos, lemon, and some dill, and that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, that's about where I'm at right now. I'll have juices on occasion. I do a lot of juice fasting too, lengthy ones. So when I feel called to do it, I'll do it. And that's kind of how I started the whole raw thing was I was into like a 60-day juice fast in 2020 or 45 day. And I was like, I'm raw when I'm doing this, so why don't I just continue this? So
Yeah.
when I started eating food again, it was just like uncooked raw fruit and then some vegetables here and there, but it's more fruit than anything.
Wow. Wow. And first of all, people don't really know what that's like. I mean, most people eat animal foods. Even vegans themselves don't eat raw vegan. So this is a very, if you will, niche diet that you're doing, and the Shivambu practice as well. To add on top of that, just makes for a really interesting character that you are, and I appreciate you for who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Fruits. The first thing that comes to mind, and just from my like biological, scientific, like medicine kind of perspective, is like it's lacking in protein,
Mhm.
which is found abundantly in animal foods, but even less abundantly so in vegan foods. But fruits are very lacking protein. But what they're not lacking in, and you're probably getting a lot of, is like micronutrients, vitamins, minerals,
Mm.
little sulforaphane, like these plant phytochemicals that you don't really find in animal foods as much as you find them in plant foods, and the colors, the different vitamins there, and the colors, the skin of the fruit, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably getting a lot of that, which is great. So yeah, although maybe to the naked eye and to the scientific eye, it may not seem like the logical thing to do, but I mean, if it feels good for you, then
Yeah.
more power to you, man.
Can I comment on the protein thing?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Do you eat nuts, by the way? Do you?
yeah, I did say nuts, yeah, as
Oh,
part of
okay.
my
I didn't
diet too.
catch
So
that. Yeah.
with my dates, like with my dry fruit, if it's figs or dates
Yeah.
or sometimes raisins, I'll add nuts with it. So
Yeah.
I guess there's protein in there, but I have determined for myself that protein, the narrative behind it is a myth. I understand that protein helps build muscle, and my goal is not to really bulk up or get built or nothing. But I am not deteriorating either, though. So
Yeah.
I think that because I was worried about that when I first started juicing, I
Right.
bought vegan protein, and I
Yeah.
used to add that to every juice, and I was like, do I really need this? Like just this thought came to mind. So I was like, let me try it without it. And I
Right.
tried it a day and then I went another day and I felt the same. I was like, it didn't really affect me. So I stopped taking it. And so for
Yeah.
last 4 years, no protein supplement. Just I guess whatever's in the nuts and seeds or whatever else I'm eating.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you guys this: like, this guy has a lot of energy. Like, it's not like he's doing it and you feel like he's depleted or anything. Like, I talk to him, he's always like, "Hey, Mazin," like, oh, he's always alive, very vivacious, if that's the correct word to use in the circumstance. So yes, the evidence, whatever they say that is, may not count for that. but the evidence is before my eyes and before my experience is this man's presence. So I mean, that's all I could say about that.
Thank
uh
you. No, no, and I think all of this stuff for me is all intuitive anyway. The Shivambu, the folks that are in the community, they call it an intuitive medicine, and that's fine. I think it's very intuitive,
yeah.
and we're all learning about it still because it's not a common thing. And I will say this, maybe we can talk about later, but I talked to my doctor years ago about it, and I said I'm drinking my own urine, and he was like, yeah.
Was he a conventional, like,
Allopathic doctor
allopathic doctor?
from Sharp, and
Yeah, yeah.
he knew nothing about it. He's like, Jose, I don't know anything about this. I can't say don't do it. I will say this. If you feel good and keep doing your thing. And I stopped him. I said, doctor, I would like to do a blood test. I want to see if there's any difference.
Yeah.
So I was learning about my blood too. I was doing some what do they call it when they take my blood?
IVs,
Well, they take my blood and
blood
blood test,
tests.
I
Yeah,
guess.
just
Yeah.
blood tests.
Sorry. But anyway, yeah, we did a blood test while I was there, and I had been drinking my urine every day. And then he's like, let's lay off of it for 30 days, come back and do another blood test.
Yeah.
Did another blood test. Results were like very similar. I mean, there was really no difference. I wasn't affecting myself like negatively.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was just like, said, keep doing what you're doing, Jose.
Man,
Yeah.
you must have blew that guy's mind. I'm pretty sure you're the only guy who walked into this guy's office. He was a guy, right? It was a
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he was like someone who drinks their own urine, and
Probably.
he must have been like, oh my God. When he went home that day and he saw his family, he was not the same.
I sure hope so.
It's like, I've never seen a patient like this. And then you come back. This is what probably blew his mind, is that the blood tests were pretty much identical to
Yeah.
what they were before, which again goes to show, like, at least it's safe, at
Yeah.
least it's safe, if
Yeah.
not beneficial in some way,
Sure.
shape, or form.
Yeah, and there was other factors involved. I was doing the juicing and everything too, and I was fresh too from not fresh, but like a year into sobriety, and kind of slowly transitioning from the whole eating so much to intermittent fasting to doing water fast, and then I got into juice fast and urine therapy at the same time. So it was like a
Yeah.
big transition.
Just like the combination of things that you were doing, so it's hard to pinpoint.
It's
That's
really
kind of what you were saying before.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I wish I would have documented even like, more detailed. Like I have journals of where I was writing what I was doing, and just a little bit about how I felt, but not too in depth. And I kind of wish I did, but I'm here now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
feel good, and I'm always open to sharing all about this stuff, because
yeah.
anything that I have found value in, I want to share, and I'll share
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And we deeply appreciate you sharing this value. Maybe someone will be curious about this and do some research and embark. Like, who knows? Something else that you mentioned to me before that you do is sun gazing as well, which typically just involves staring at the sun for some amount of time.
Mhm.
I know that if I stare into the sun, which is really interesting because it depends. If I stare into the sun after having used my phone or my computer for a long time, I can't handle it, man. I can't do it. But if, like, I didn't use my phone for like maybe overnight and I wake up in the morning and I can look at the sun, I have more of a capacity to
Mm.
look into the sun. It's almost like my threshold is higher. Like, I can withstand the sun's powerful energy more.
Hmm.
But I want to hear from you. So what's up with this sun gazing? Where'd you hear from it? Why do you do it? And how does it feel?
So in my journey of learning about Shivambu and whatnot, there's a lot of content that kind of came my way, and it all coincided, right? So sun gazing was one of them, and I heard it's so hard at that time. It was so hard to decipher what was true and what was not on the internet. Of course, it still is, but I have a good discernment now. But at that time, I was having trouble. So people were talking about sun gazing. Other people were saying, "Don't do it. You're gonna damage your eyes."
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? Let me just try it. So I just like the Shivambu. Somebody gave guidance on doing it during the golden hour. So if you're unfamiliar with the golden hour, that is the hour when the sun rises wherever you're at in the world. The hour that the time that it rises within an hour, they say that there's no UV rays that can damage your eyesight, so that's the best time to sun gaze, and also at sunrise, so an hour from up until sunrise.
Mm,
So I was doing it at those times, but I started off literally the first day that I did it. I can remember because my outside my apartment, it faces east,
mm.
so I went and right in the rising. I got outside, saw the sun come up, and I said, okay, 8 seconds. 8 seconds is all I can handle. And I was like, ah, you know. Then the next day, 15 seconds, and then the next day, 30, and then a minute, 2 minutes. So I just slowly started building up. But I'll tell you this though, I got a little zealous. I was like, this is awesome. I'm feeling good, and I'll talk about those benefits. But I tried sun gazing at like 9 in the morning, when a few hours after, and I'm like, and then I had this dot right in my eye, and I felt like I burned something in my eyesight, and I'm like, oh shit, I got scared. I'm like, okay, no more, like I'm gonna stop. And about 2 weeks, about a week and a half or so, it went away.
Oh, that's good.
I got my eyesight like
Yeah, yeah.
pitch perfect again, and so I was like, okay, let me try this again, because I was really feeling energetic, really empowered. If you're a meditator, or you do breath work, you may have experienced these like epiphanies, or like downloads, or some type of, even on psychedelics, right? Some type of downloads. Well, I was getting that from just sun gazing. I mean, I'm like sun gazing, and like I could feel the consciousness of the sun speaking to me, and not in words, but in vibrations. And so, even as I'm sun gazing, I can see, like almost like the sky turn into like a grid. Like I can see, like, let's say this matrix, that's kind of what we were
Yeah,
talking about earlier. I can see the veil kind of just falling down, and I can see this place for what it is. And it just kind of brings me back to my power, like it
yeah.
makes me feel very, very powerful, because when I talk about sun gazing, people are like, don't do it, and they try it, and they're like, but I got to the point where I can do it at any time of day now. Like high noon, or between 11 and 1 o'clock is probably like my favorite time, because it's so high intense energy.
Yeah.
And there's methods to it though too. I ground sometimes, not all the time, but meaning I put my bare feet on dry soil while I'm
Mhm.
doing it. If I do that, I can intake the sun even more. If you ever seen like hieroglyphics, or any ancient Egyptian pictograms of people doing this, they're putting their palms to the sun. I do that as well, and I can feel the energy going into my palms. So it's like all these things that were like there in history books, and pictures and stuff. It's like teaching. It was teaching me how to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
So I just kind of went for it, and I love it. It feels so good.
It's pretty incredible. And, it makes sense because the sun is like source energy. Like,
Yeah.
we are light beings
Mhm.
and the sun is the source of light. And so it's like if you were tapping into the sun, there's something you're tapping into that is so essential for us. And especially nowadays where we live, most people live in like a enclosed home, 9 to 5 job. They're sitting at their desk, they're not seeing the sun all day. And
Mm,
therefore, not just is their circadian rhythm out of whack because
mhm,
they're not seeing the sun at the appropriate time and they're using all these screens that are knocking out their circadian rhythm,
mhm,
they're not connecting with that essential part of who we are that's always been a part of who we are in our evolutionary history on this planet,
mhm.
which is the sun. The sun, the earth, the water, these things are so essential. It's almost hard to you know estimate just how good they are for us.
Mm.
So although I don't do these practices, I see the value in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and what you say and how you do it, like especially with grounding your feet into the ground, which also connects you to the electromagnetic frequency of the earth. It provides you with electrons, so electrons to the body means energy. Like the more electrons you have,
Yeah.
the more energy that you have. And doing the sun at the same time, I mean, what a powerful combo that is.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's and I learned that, through the practice, and also some content and whatnot. And I find myself throughout the week, not grounding as much. And so I'll still sun gaze, and I feel like I'm a battery, right? It's
Yeah.
like charging me up, like recharge me, and then
Yeah.
like now I need to dissipate some of that energy. So when
Yep.
I ground, it's like a balance. It balances me out. Yeah, but throughout the sun gazing practice, the way And if you don't know me personally, I live my life through like the esoteric lens, right? So like
Oh,
I'm an occultist, and like
yeah.
everything is there's a sign everywhere. Synchronicities. I was talking about the podcast you did with Lonnie,
Yeah, yeah,
and all that stuff resonates with me. So anyway, the way I interpret my sun gazing is, well, I think it's Latin or whatnot. They call the sun soul, or maybe it's Spanish. I don't know. But anyway, SOL. And so the soul is going into the windows of my soul, and it's like in non-duality perspective, it's, me just connecting with myself,
yeah,
with my
yeah,
consciousness.
yeah. Yeah, you touched on the esoteric nature of who you are. And if there's ever one word to describe you, I feel like esoteric would be probably one of them. Just to tell a story about how me and Jose met. So, there's this place called Maya Moon Collective in University Heights, San Diego, where we
Normal
live.
heights, normal heights.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
Normal
Yeah,
Heights, Normal
got
Heights.
props to normal heights.
Yeah, shout out to Normal Heights. Also, props to University Heights, but
Yeah.
not for this conversation. And so I did ayahuasca. This was back in maybe July of or August of 2022 in Costa Rica. And when I came back, I was just like, I need to change so many things in my life. And one of the things, like, I met this my friend Katie. She told me, she's like, "Oh, you love cacao. You have to check this place out called Maya Moon." And it was just when I got back from ayahuasca, and it was, talk about a synchronicity, right? Like, I'd never heard of this place. And I stepped foot into this place, Maya Moon, and just the vibes you feel once you get in there, especially as a newcomer, right? It's just so fresh and like very feng shui. Like, everything's like kind of white and very peaceful. The people who work there are like angels, the best people to talk to,
They really
so
are.
fun and spiritual. And there's like tarot readings and like high grade ceremonial cacao mixed with like high grade organic herbs and
Products, yeah.
ingredients and mocktails, and just really high vibe place. And again, if you live in San Diego, or if you don't and you ever come here, like, please go visit this place. Seriously, amazing. Catherine Rogers, the owner of this place, she throws events every night, I think,
Just about, yeah, that's
just pretty
yeah, a
much,
couple of a week, yeah.
just to like highlight these entrepreneurs that are coming in and just spreading their gifts with the world. But anyway, that's where I met Jose. And so I remember we just, met. I don't even know how we met. Do you remember like the exact? Oh, you do?
I do.
Oh, please share. I can't remember.
Breathwork journey
Oh, is that where we met?
with, I think Greg, remember, I think it was the breathwork journey, or maybe it was a sound journey. It was one of
Oh,
those
I think it
journeys.
was a sound journey.
Yeah,
I've
that's
never
right.
been to the.
Cause Misty, if you remember,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Misty, Misty's.
That's when I met you and Lonnie, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's so. No way. That's when we
Yeah.
met.
It was a
Okay.
sound journey,
That's
yeah.
actually full circle. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, but so then, ever since then, me and Jose have just had these like incredible conversations about like consciousness and non-duality and Rumi, and just the really deep esoteric stuff that I feel like is at the core of our existence right now. And we are kind of channeling that energy. And I want to talk to you about that. But as we enter this sort of conversation about non-duality,
Mhm.
I just want to acknowledge the difficulty of speaking about this esoteric wisdom, because it's almost impossible to speak about. In fact, I would say it's impossible to speak about. But people like you, I feel like, come very close to at least approximating what it is we're trying to say here. So how would you want to get into this? What's the entryway that you want to start with this? Because honestly, I have no idea.
How about I'll share a little bit about how I got into, or my experience with that.
Sure,
And
yeah, that'd be
so
great. Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, I thank you for the compliment. I feel like I have a hard time articulating all of this stuff because, again, how, like we said, how do you describe the indescribable, right?
Right.
We're limited to all these words, that we were given, as a society, and these words are funky in the English language. I don't know about any other language, but I can tell you the English language is goofy. But nonetheless, learning about solipsism and learning about Hermeticism and Gnosticism, it all kind of led me back or led me to non-duality. And
Mm.
then, you have this as above, so below type of thing. So, I mean, just the idea behind that, as above, so below.
Just for the people who are maybe only listening to this, he's pointing to
Oh,
like
thank
a
you.
yin and yang kind of symbol which is a little morphed into like a tree, whereas the white part is there's a black tree submerged in it, and then the bottom, the black part, I believe it's the yin energy. There's roots that are white that are submerged in it. So that's what he's referring to with yeah, with your comment. But please
Yeah,
keep
no, no,
going.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. And that's just the way I interpret that, and I know that there's a yin yang, symbology there too, but that my mind never goes to there. It's always like that whole idea of, what is above is also below, it's
Yeah.
they're one.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I guess solipsism is what really kind of led me to non-duality. The idea that, and this is just my explanation of solipsism, but the
Hmm.
the idea of me only being able to validate my own consciousness and no one else's. I can't validate anyone else's consciousness, because I've never experienced Mazin outside of this body and outside of these eyes and
Right.
ears.
Right.
So that whole idea got me thinking, and even Hermeticism I brought up. The first law of Hermeticism is all is mind. The universe is mental. So if this is a mental projection that I'm seeing around me, then that means that there's only one, and well, at least in the way I interpret it. But yeah, it's such an interesting concept because we live in a realm like we were talking about, of duality.
Right.
There's male and there's female, there's up and there's down.
Right.
It's inevitable to experience while we're here in this realm, but it essentially there is no separation of any of this.
Yeah.
And all this literature that I've come across, like the Mayan precept is what they call it, in Lakesh. And it's a poem in the Mayan language, and in Lakesh means I am another you and you're another me. And it's like that's been there for whatever ages, but yeah, even the Bible talks about it when Jesus, he says, "I and my Father are one," or he goes on to say, if you've fed my brother, you fed me. And
Mm.
it's like non-duality has been there this whole time. It seems like even
Yeah.
in movies,
Yeah.
like Interstellar is one of my favorite movies
Oh,
ever. So
they just brought it back to IMAX. I don't know if you heard about this. It's the
no,
10-year anniversary, so they brought it back in the theaters.
I want to see
Yeah, we should go watch it,
it.
man.
We should.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
down.
yeah.
Well, the whole thing, that may not be the best example of it, but I mean,
Sure.
the idea of and I don't spoiler alert, but Coop, basically leading himself there, and it's that whole non-duality thing, is
Yeah.
for me at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I see it in a lot of things, and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And, that's kind of the perspective that really changed my life. I was dealing with a lot of suffering at some point in my life, mental angst, mental anxiety. I began meditating because I saw on Reddit that they said that it would reduce my anxiety. And so I did start to meditate. And of course, it didn't reduce my anxiety for like some time, but then slowly it started to reduce my anxiety. And at some point, and I even remember at some point, like when I was meditating in my bed, this is when I first moved to Washington. I was a student at Bellevue College at the time. And I began to meditate on my back because I had back issues. So meditating, like sitting down, was kind of uncomfortable for me. But when I was able to do that, that meditation, I got deeper than I had ever gone before. And it almost like something clicked like in my mind where when I left to go to class that day, I remember like walking around and going like I was so unabridged by anything. I felt so just connected and at the same time so stoic. Like it was just I was watching it all happen before me, including watching myself like as a human being.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how the hell is this even possible? Like, I didn't even know this perspective existed.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so since then I've been able to tap into that. And what I will say is like for people who don't meditate, maybe who are listening to this, like you don't need to meditate to be a non-dual being.
Yeah.
You are a non you are
Yeah.
a non-dual being, you are consciousness, you are God, you are this, which again, maybe you saying you are God might like trigger some people or throw some people off, but
Mm.
it's just a word, don't get too attached to the label
It's just a
God,
word.
love, consciousness,
Uh,
being. We say you're a human being, right?
uh,
A human is the pretext, the preface to the being of
yeah.
who you actually are. And so, yeah, this non duality understanding fundamentally changed my life. And that understanding is that we are connected. In fact, we are so connected that we are the same being.
Mhm.
We appear as these separate illusions, like differences, like I'm moving my hand and you're responding in this way. But it's almost like watching a movie where everything moves at the same time, as opposed to being like a separate entity, an
Mhm.
ego, if you will, which we can get into what that means, the word
Mhm.
ego.
Yeah.
And that's just an illusion of who we are that is necessary to create the tools
Mhm.
and the means for us to wake up from that reality
Mhm.
and realize who we truly are. And man, we're pretty powerful.
Knowledge is power, and there's like I know that there's words that we use or that others use, and some people may be activated or triggered. And I just live my life intuitively, and there's certain words I try to avoid. But connected is one of them, in the sense of non-duality, though, because um that just kind of implies a separation almost. Like, again, we were saying these
Yeah.
words just kind of imply the opposite still.
Duality just keeps on
It
popping in
just
the
pops up.
conversation. Yeah, it does its best to come back.
Really does.
Yeah.
So, yes, we I just tell people, yeah, I am you, you're me. We're just experiencing ourselves, and it looks separate, and it's a fun reality, or it's a fun experience to have.
It was.
Yeah.
Uh, the way I think that people, or the way I've heard that this has been formulated, like, and this makes the most sense to me, but again, it's a narrative, but I
Mhm.
want to hear
Of
what you
course.
think about it,
Sure.
is that like God, consciousness, whatever, the oneness of life wanted to get to know itself. And the only way it could do that was for it to split itself into two, or to appear to split itself into two, so it can appear in the multiplicity and the infinite nature of life.
Mhm.
And by doing that, it can, experience just how insanely powerful and creative and multiplied just insanity that it is, and all the different colors and objects and people and personalities and music and frequencies that you see.
Mhm.
And that just pays testament to how powerful it is. So the only way it could do that was it could split a me and you,
Mhm.
and it could show that me and you are having this conversation right now, as opposed to recognizing our true nature. But we do know that that is our true nature. And so it's a constant, if you will, learning about that. Or even a better word to be using is to like remember
Mm.
what it is that is happening, and remember who it is that we are.
Yeah. No, I agree with that statement completely. I like to say that this is a journey of remembering in reverse. Because it's like we're remembering, but it's like, I don't know, like we're already there, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, nonetheless, Brahman is what comes to mind. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. And I I don't dive too deep into things, because there's a phrase I like: "The devil is in the details," and it can get so fun at times to get lost down these things, but also overwhelming for me. So,
Yeah.
Brahmin is, from the way I understand, is I think it's a Vedic or a Hindu idea of what you were saying. God, or the source, Brahman, decided to split itself up to experience itself, to get to know itself, and that's what we are. This is the result of Brahman doing that. and,
Right.
and there's other ideologies out there, or philosophies, or sacred texts that talk about it, like in Gnosticism. The story of Sophia, which I like to post a lot about her. But essentially, she's the reason for this existence here too, and she's part of it. Actually, is a big part of the reason why we're split up. But I think all this stuff, like I said, is just kind of hinted in our experience, for us to find, and it is a remembrance journey for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the books, movies, the music, and all the stuff on our black screens that we have, are just the scriptures of our times.
Yeah.
They really are. I
Yeah.
mean, and it may not look like it, but who's to say in 1,000 years, they're like, oh yeah, we see this book or whatever, this movie Interstellar. This
Yeah.
is a sacred text. This is a
Yeah. Yeah.
sacred
Yeah.
movie. I don't know, just
That'd be pretty funny if they look back at like Interstellar and like, well, it's funny because you have like Interstellar and then you have like like Bad Bunny and Travis Scott and like Miley Cyrus. like we look back on like Plato and they're gonna be looking back at like Miley Cyrus, quite the different philosopher, you might argue.
Well,
If you could call Miley Cyrus a philosopher, which, we're all philosophers, we're all shamans over time.
well, I definitely resonate with the philosopher label, I guess, because it's a love of Sophia, love of wisdom.
Mm.
Yeah, I do love wisdom. I love seeking it out.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it just seems to make sense to me. It totally made sense, and it was very uncomfortable to get there, though.
Yeah, tell me about that discomfort. What was that like for you?
Well, I have a Christian background, and I vocalize that a lot. But the Bible is I love it. I think it's a beautiful piece of literature, and it's very allegorical in nature. But there's so much wisdom to find in it.
Yeah.
So conditioning, growing up, the ideas, Christianity and whatnot. It's all there still. So learning about Brahman, learning about non-duality was like, no, no, there's a God, and there's a source. There's something greater than me, and I'm not that. I'm this right here. But and then the idea behind all of us being just one kind of sounds lonely to me too.
Mm.
So I heard a content creator one time say, like, she said, eternity is boring. And I didn't know what she meant by that until later. Like,
Hmm.
that kind of makes sense. If in physics, we have the idea of the singularity and the black hole and all that. And I don't know if you're familiar with all this, but nonetheless, there's an idea that a black hole, sucks in all the gravity into the singularity, which is this one pinpoint where everything gets sucked back into, and not even light can escape, right? Well, we are that in a non-duality perspective. We are that, but we're getting back to that. We're not there yet. We're that light that's being sucked back into that. And
Yeah.
so it's like, what happens then? It's like, well, we don't know, right? I mean, in this avatar, I don't know,
I
but
wonder if we ever will get to that. Like, because we were talking about before, like life is
yeah,
eternal. So
yes,
maybe there is that singularity, but it's almost like it's a concept that can never be reached.
exactly.
It's like we're moving towards it. It's
Yeah.
like we're running this, marathon that's like thousands, billions of years. Fuck that. Delete time, actually. How, like, remove time from the equation, because once you speak about eternal and infinite, time like ceases to exist. To
Yeah.
me, time is the fourth dimension. And so maybe, like, yeah, like the singularity is something that we can kind of think about, but we never actually reach that like final single point that we inevitably are and will reach.
I agree, and I'll give you this one too. I can't prove or validate that I was ever born, nor can I prove or validate that I'll ever die. So I'm not convinced I'm ever gonna die. That's
Yeah.
that's that's how I live right now. I'm not. If it happens, it happens. Okay, but I'm not convinced it's gonna happen. I'm not gonna try it either
Yeah.
because I love this experience.
It's amazing. Wait, so what happens when you die? Like, when your physical body, like, let's say Jose lived a graceful life, taught many esoteric teachings, was a nail in a sure place, which we want to talk about. That's your artist name.
Sure.
But anyway, so you get to an old age, and, at some point the physical body deteriorates. What happens then?
So again, I can't validate. I can only validate my own experience, right? Um, the whole idea of death to me is just a narrative. Okay. Yes, I've had people in my life that have gone to a certain age. And yes, I've seen an entity or a body in a casket that was my family member or whatever, or friend.
Mm.
They look like that person, but I didn't see them actually give up their ghost, as the Bible calls it. I didn't see them actually die, or quote unquote die. So in my reality, or in my timeline, as people say,
Mm.
or in my experience, as I
Mm.
say,
Mm.
in my experience, I've had people here in my life and I've had them leave. And some of them had shown me this idea of death, and I love them, and they're not here anymore, but they're still here. I still experience them
In
in
your
my
psyche.
psyche, my thoughts, my feelings. If I My grandma, I'm going to use as an example because she's always with me. And She, according to the narrative, she passed away, in 2000, I think 9 or 8. I think it was 8. And, I miss her. I miss that presence that I had with her in this realm. But she's still here with me. Like, she talks to me during journeys and through meditation and whatnot. And I feel her presence all the time. I feel her here now. So, is she gone? Is she dead? Not really. The concept of her, or the idea of her, or the memories of her, whatever you want to say, still present with me and still alive in me too. So I don't believe, or I'm not convinced that I'm going to die, because I don't think it's real. I think I can't prove it to be real. I can't prove a lot of things to be real that I've heard. So that's how I live. I was talking about this today, and we were talking about being so distracted with the outside world and what's going on. And I explained this. I found peace with that by making my world very small. I don't fight or fear a monster that is not in front of me, bar none. So if it's not in front of me, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying I don't fear or fight it. So I don't give my energy to it either.
Yeah.
So the idea of death, I haven't seen it happen. I've actually seen. I had a lesson in Mount Shasta, actually, where I accidentally killed a squirrel. Yeah. Would you like to hear this story?
I would
Yeah.
love to. It sounds.
It's kind of pertinent to this, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
To sum it up, I went to the mountain. I had a great time. I actually climbed it. I had a beautiful experience. The next day, I was like, I'm going to go back. I started driving speed limit, and then 2 squirrels came out in front of me, and I tried to slow down and stop, and I went right over them. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, one was still in the ground, laying in the street. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I've never done this before. This has never happened. What do I do? So I turned around. I went back. I picked up the squirrel. I took it to the side. I dug a hole and I buried it, and I put a little marker there. And I was crying the whole time because I was like, what did I do? And I asked for forgiveness, even though it was inanimate. It wasn't moving. Now, did I see it actually die? No. I just know I went over it, and there was this dead being there. And I'm still trying to process that. This is 2 years ago, and I'm still trying to understand. Almost 2 years ago, I'm still trying to understand what was that lesson. And maybe it's just a purpose to talk about this stuff, now. But yeah, that was my experience with death. And again, I didn't see it actually die, though.
Yeah,
All I
yeah,
know is
yeah,
just
yeah,
under my car was this thing there, and it looked like a dead squirrel, and so I buried it.
yeah.
So yeah, this realm we live in, and this experience that I'm experiencing, it feels so real. It feels so real,
It does.
I'm not fooled by it anymore, though.
Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing, man. That was a big deep dive on death. I mean, I have
Mhm.
many curiosities about this idea of death, or maybe the illusion of death that you may say. And when you say it feels real, to me, I think what you're referring to is like the experience of realness,
Mhm.
as opposed, which to me is like detached from, or again, it's tricky with language, but it's separate from the things that appear in the, because death is a concept, life is a concept,
Time as well, right?
time is
Yeah.
all these things are concepts, and so, but there is an element to our existence that I feel like is real, and that is reality. Like that's experience. That's
This what's happening
like
right
it
now,
is the
right?
consciousness, and
Yeah.
that's the realest part of it. Like you can, like, who are you when you take away your name, you take away your job, you take away your clothes, you take away your life, your house, your friends, your everything. You're left with nothing. Maybe even your body. Take away your body. Who are you?
Hmm.
Your presence. That's it.
That's it.
That's the consciousness. and
Yeah.
and to me, that part of us, like, how can that die? Like it's just, not that it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense to me, but it feels like it is kind of beyond what it feels like to die, for that being to die. And I wonder also about the idea of a simulation.
Mhm.
Because people talk about, oh, life is a simulation, and it's kind of like this thing that people like toss around nowadays, and it's like, well, what do you actually mean, like life is a simulation, right? Like I
Mhm.
feel like people mean different things when they say this is a simulation.
Mhm.
We were just talking about this before. I asked you if you are playing any video games these days, and you were like, "Well, no." I was like, "Wait a minute. What about this one?"
So the new answer is yes. I'm playing this video game at the moment. Yeah.
So yeah, so life is a game. Like I've heard that also many, many, many times.
Mhm.
And that's also in Hinduism. There's the word of Leela, which basically translates to the divine game, right? Just put the word divine in there, all of a sudden it has a new flavor to it.
Yeah, yeah. The
Um,
Divine Comedy, that's,
yeah, yeah,
Dante's, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So is life a game? What does that mean? And does that mean life is trivial in a sense?
I think that trivia or the trivial moments in life are existent, and I don't think that's the purpose of it, though. I think in my gnosis, and that's my spiritual knowledge, as per definition, is that as this is a simulation for me. It's a simulation of consciousness, and I get to choose the purpose that I in this avatar being whatever I want to do, and so it's really subjective.
Who's choosing?
The I, whatever that is, that consciousness is.
So the consciousness has free will, but Jose as an avatar, maybe not so much.
Mm. Yes, I will agree with that. I don't. I think free will is another one of those concepts that is an illusion.
Yeah.
I don't believe. To be frank, to be to be Jose, to be completely transparent, I think love is an illusion too. Yeah, fear,
Yeah.
love, all of that, it's
Yeah.
all illusion. So I've heard that in the spiritual communities, like, oh, we're pure love, we're pure consciousness, and we're pure love and light. Well, okay, that's great if for you, but it's not for me. Like I choose love. Yes, I choose to seek a partner and all that stuff. Because it's fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get to choose.
Yeah.
But I don't in this avatar I choose. But ultimately, it's feels like a script. It feels like a game that is already programmed and preset. And to use words as a metaphor, though, like not a literal video game, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's there.
It's almost like a script that's being written in the present moment, right?
Yeah,
It's continually being written in the present moment
yeah.
because if you take this like esoteric wisdom of the only thing that exists is the present moment, nothing ever happened in the past, nothing
Mhm,
will ever happen in the future,
mhm,
then the present moment is all that is, that's all that exists. And so this script of, we're talking predeterminism versus free will, collapse those ideas. Don't like just forget about them for a second and realize that the present is all there is, and that's when it's being written. It's like everything is being generated in real time. And an example I can give, maybe this might help illustrate for maybe you and some people listening, is like if you're playing a video game, right? Like you're playing the game, maybe you're playing Grand Theft Auto, right? On the game, it appears that you are this character. You are, you're driving a car, you're turning the steering wheel, you're getting out of the car, you're doing all these things, right?
Driving, hitting the hooker, like,
Hit
driving over a
hit the
person.
hooker,
That game is weird, but
we've
anyway.
all yeah, we've all done some crazy shit in GTA,
Yeah.
man. Our shadow self maybe.
Yeah.
But so all those things, right? They appeared as if the character is doing them, but really it's like you, the controller, who's in control of doing that in that very moment. And the other part of that of this analogy that I think really hits the spot is that the car, when it's not on the screen, does not exist. The car isn't even there.
Mhm,
It's not like the car is hidden somewhere. If you open your PlayStation, you'd be like, "Oh, there you are,
mhm.
underneath the motherboard." Like, no, it's not there. So it's being rendered in real time. It's being rendered on the fly, on the spot, in the present moment.
Sure.
And I think that paints a very similar picture to this life that we're living now, where it's like things are being rendered in the present moment. And outside that present moment, or inside the present moment, I should say, but outside of our conscious field of awareness, everything exists. But it's not like they exist in particular as an object. It's just the potential of them that exists.
Mhm.
And then they come into the fray, from nothingness, appearingly. And that's why life is so magical because things just seemingly pop up out of nothing. This present moment is so ethereal that it just pops up out of nothing. And yet here we are. And so I love that analogy to kind of paint what you were talking about with
Yeah.
this kind of real-time generation of the script as kind of a metaphor for free will.
Have you ever heard of the double slit experiment?
Yeah, the quantum
Yeah,
double slit. Yeah,
yeah.
but maybe you could share it. It would be nice to hear it.
Well, that's what you're reminding me of, and I love that analogy that you gave too. But it reminds me of that. And I'm not a quantum physicist, but it was an experiment done. I don't know when. The narrative says like in the 70s or 80s, and it's basically this: you had two walls, one wall in the back, and then you had another wall in the front, and the wall in the front had two slits in it, and so it had like two openings.
Yep.
So what I remember is that they were shooting photons, I think, like
Electrons.
electrons or
Yep.
light or something.
Electrons. Yep.
So they came to realize that under observation, the electrons acted like actual particles, and they
Mm-hmm.
were going against. They were going through the slits and hitting the back wall, and it looked like a straight line. Like wherever they were going through, it was hitting like a straight line. But
Mm-hmm.
when it was not being observed, it was acting like waves. So they would actually spread on the
Yep.
wall. So
Yep.
blows my mind, but that just takes me back to the Chinese proverb. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it
Yeah.
make a sound? You know?
I would. You know what I would say to that? The tree doesn't even exist.
Yeah, because I wasn't there.
Literally.
Well, to that effect, that's how I live my life too. Is like what's around me is the reality, and
Yeah.
outside of that, I can't validate anything to exist. Honestly, I can't. That's the honest truth,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not me being an asshole. It's like I just can't
I
validate it.
know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this idea of zombies, like philosophical zombies. Have you heard of this? Like where it's
No.
like it's kind of I guess solipsism in a way relates to that, where it's like I am the only conscious being. Everything, everyone else is a zombie, basically. NPCs, if you will,
Yeah.
in that other terminology.
Mhm.
But I want to ask you about that and solipsism in general because um, solipsism to me doesn't strike me as the realest thing that there is in a way.
Mhm.
And here's what I think about it because solipsism, as far as I understand, is the idea that like I am the only I am the only one that exists in reality. Everything else doesn't really exist, right? But what I have to say about that is like when I say that phrase, like I am the only one that exists, it's hard to say that without implying that you are a part of I. So when I say I, because it appears that everything appears from my perspective as Mazin, and I go through the world as this or that.
Yeah.
But if I ever come to tell you, if I go to your house one day and be like, Jose, I'm the only one that exists, I'm looking at you, and guess what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
I'm looking at myself.
Yeah.
So whenever although it appears that you go to your house, like after this podcast, you go home, I go home, I'm at home, but and then it appears that I'm separate. I'm be like, you see, I am the only one that exists, and Jose is not here anymore. It doesn't exist. But when I want to tell you that, I am obliged to include you as my definition of I because you are appearing in my conscious field of awareness. Therefore, because we are all one, non-duality, I have to concede that you are a part of this solipsistic identity if we choose to describe it in that way. Does that resonate with you in any way?
It does. It does. Because I bring up solipsism because that's what led me to where I'm at with the non-duality. But I would say that my view on solipsism, I guess, or the way I've integrated it into my gnosis is a little different. I mean, that is a classical explanation. I think it was Spinoza who's the one who introduced solipsism to the world. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, um, I would add, I would say this. Not that I'm the only one that exists, but I'm the only one that I can only validate my own existence. That's what I say is I can only validate my own.
Yeah.
And by that meaning this body, this entity that you see right here, I can only validate my own experience. I can't validate yours or anyone else's. And that's the honest
But
truth.
can you even validate that? That's my question.
My own,
Yeah. How can you even validate that?
just in the
The
moment.
body, all that.
Yeah, just in the
Is
moment.
that to my mind? That's you can't even validate that.
Why can't you validate your own body?
Well, because it appears as something, but I know it's nothing. It appears that it exists as a separate thing, but really it's just the fabric of life that is appearing, which is spirit, which
Mhm.
is ethereal, life juice, if you will. Like I don't know, that's how to
Ethereal life juice. I
how,
like that.
how to phrase
Here's
it.
some ethereal life juice right here.
If anything, that's the most ethereal life juice I've ever seen. But you know what I'm saying. So it's like I can't validate my own body. I can't validate my own experience. I can validate existence, and that's the only thing that I can validate. Therefore, since you appear in that same existence, then the only thing that is I can validate is you, but naturally I have to include me and this wall and this plant.
Mhm.
So it's you can't even talk about it because as soon as you validate only yours, you've already split it into two.
Sure.
Whereas, the truth is that there is only one and we are experiencing that one and we are that one.
Yeah, no, you got me thinking there, Mazen. That's really good. So the experience is it for me too. This
Fundamentally.
fundamentally this is just happening right now, and that's all we can validate, really, right? You're right. You know, so I was thinking about this. I had this epiphany recently, and I shared it with a friend of mine, and I'm gonna see if I can remember it exactly. But again, Bible, Jose's Bible guy, right?
Yeah.
So there's a scripture that says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Okay, so that Greek word for word is logos, or some people pronounce it logos, but I believe
Logos.
it's pronounced logos in the Greek. But
Yeah.
anyway, that Greek word logos means like the mindset, the thought. So in the beginning was the thought or the idea, and in the beginning was a word, and the word was with God, right? And the word was God. So that all was in the beginning, that whole idea. Well, anyway, I thought about this reality and what we're told, right? We have, you mentioned earlier, frequencies, right?
Hmm.
So we have a visible light spectrum,
Hmm.
right? And they say what it's the visible light spectrum is only 0.0003% of what's actually out there.
Okay.
And then we have other vibrational waves that we hear with sound and whatnot. So the word, the actual word, or the expression by these frequencies is what it is, right? This experience is, it's all just the word. And so this is God. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So I'm trying to remember exactly how I worded it, because it wasn't like one of those downloads, it's like I recorded it somewhere. But anyway, yeah, I think that the divine, as I like to call it, or the infinite all, whatever you want to call it, it's just vibration. It's just word. It's frequency. It's what Nikola Tesla had said. You want to unlock or not unlock, but think of the universe in frequency, vibration, and energy.
Yeah.
If you want to unlock the secrets of it. Yeah.
It's almost so hard to know if it's like if that's the only way to know it. And because life is so it's almost deceiving, right? Like, and this is something that I grappled with for a while because with meditation and with this kind of understanding, you fall into many traps along the way. Necessarily so, like you kind of get caught into your own idea or biases in how it appears. And the trap that I fell into was that I was so tapped into this consciousness thing where I just didn't give a fuck about life anymore. Where I was like, man, whatever, I'm consciousness. None of this thing really matters. Man, just go around my day. Like I wasn't so tapped in. I wasn't so connected to people's presences, my own presence, just those kinds of things. And then when I realized, and this was, I have to give thanks to Rupert Spira. I don't know if you know Rupert Spira.
Anyways, yeah.
Amazing British philosopher, speaker on all of these subjects. Really
Non-dualist too.
non-dualist,
Yeah.
helped me awaken to this. And what he showed me, or what he talked in his talk, was about the idea that like life is almost an illusion, and it is an illusion in what it appears to be, but consciousness is still in everything that you experience. So it's not like there's also this mathematical understanding that we're coming out with nowadays, that like this is the third dimension and there's the fourth dimension, which is time, but there's also the fifth and sixth and seventh. And how about the millionth dimension? These dimensions are increasingly more real. It's like coming closer to the truth of who we are.
Mhm.
Yet no matter how high you go up on the hierarchy, you're still not at that ultimate one truth.
Yeah.
Like that is truly indescribable. So by that token, you would think that life is deceiving you, like, oh, third dimension, meaning like sorry, man, I gotta go to the fifth one. I'm there, like, oh, you're at the third. I can't really meet you there right now, you know. But what I realize is still in any dimension, consciousness is always there.
That's a
There,
beautiful
therefore,
explanation. Yeah.
therefore, and this kind of teaches to like the practical aspect of all of this understanding. I must respect all beings. I must respect every single conscious speck, pixel, if you will, that exists in this life because it's incredibly sacred, right? And that goes without being said almost. But I was looking past that because I was the everything, right?
Mm,
And I was losing sight of the meaning of the this in being like essential, like a sacred story, a sacred archetypal story that is divinely meant to be told through me and you having this conversation through experience, and it really changed my life when I started to really respect the specks, the little
mhm.
dots, infinite dots of consciousness that make up this dimension and the fourth and the fifth all the way to the infinity.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's really beautiful explanation of that. You know, like you brought up Rupert Spira, there's other non-dualists out there. There's other avenues like the Tao Te Ching,
Yep.
A Course in Miracles.
Mm.
I say the Bible, but most Christians may not agree with that. But
Right.
nonetheless, I see it. I see it all points back to that. It seems to all point back to
Yeah.
that. It's the further, and I think I mentioned this earlier, I think off camera, but it was like the further that I dive deep into things, it's like there's so many. It seems like it's a never ending rabbit hole, like for things. Like, have you ever seen the Ouroboros? Have you ever heard of that? It's that snake eating its
Yeah,
own
yeah, the
tail.
snake eating its own
Yeah.
tail. Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I think this consciousness is. I mean, the experience is happening. Now there's a desire in me that wants to explore and be like, well, why is there two of us? Or, and then I go down the rabbit hole and I keep on going and it's never going to end. That's why, like Alice in Wonderland, she's falling and falling and falling. And so I think that phrase, "the devil is in the details," is very appropriate right now because I just try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it simple. Like, I am you and you're me, and and everyone else is me. So throughout my daily walk or journey, I'm looking at people and I'm like, that's another me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
and I'll go even further when I have people. I've because I take public transportation, and if you're familiar with public transportation, there's a lot of interesting me's out there.
Oh yeah, man.
And so,
Especially in like New York City.
yeah, yeah, especially there. I've taken the subway there, but here in San Diego, I've encountered people that are still me, but let's talk in the dualistic expression. These are people that bumped into me like, what the fuck, and like, and I know in my gnosis and deep down, I know that I'm not going to be harmed,
Right.
because I don't intend to harm anybody,
Yeah.
and that's the law of cause and effect or
Right.
karma, whatever you want to call it. You
Right.
reap what you sow. But anyway, um, so I've had an experience with a guy recently that was he was drunk. He was at the bus stop and he started talking shit to me, and I was just standing there, just listening. And he hit the bus thing, the stand or whatever, to intimidate me, and I'm just there. But it came out though. It came out what was happening. He was grieving over his daughter that passed away,
Damn.
and so he unsolicitedly brought up that information. So I had this, and I've come to learn that it was a lesson on empathy, and the lesson was empathy with boundaries, because I didn't hold back. I didn't fight him or nothing like that. I just talked to him just the way I'm talking to you, calmly, and just try to reason with him. But he was drunk, so it was an expression of me that was playing out before me to get a reaction. And because of my practices and my meditative lifestyle, and by that I mean I walk in meditation. I don't sit down and meditate anymore, but I can hold my power. I don't give my power to just anything or anybody. And I think that that's what happens in my experience, is that there's always something trying to distract me and try to get me, but it's me. So coming full circle, on the bus, I learned how to look at people as their inner child. So
Mm.
like I envision, like right now I'm envisioning you as a child, and that just brings so much like joy to me. Like you look the same, just like smaller and just more curious, Like, and so like I see that when I saw somebody on the bus that was being weird, and
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
just a child.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
if I see everybody in that way, it's
Right.
it just changed my whole perspective
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
life.
Truly, wow, that's such a powerful shifting perspective. I think, that really reminds me of like trauma. And like, a lot of people encounter trauma in their lives, and especially in childhood. And the thing that really helps people heal is that reframing of trauma, as like the person who acted out that thing, that abuse or whatever it was that hurt you in that
Mhm.
way, was just, a damaged inner child, and that
Mhm.
usually comes intergenerationally, like their parents or something
Mhm.
that happened to them. It just gets passed down and down. But the point where you break that cycle is once you realize that like this person is just simply so hurt that that was the best that he could do in that moment.
Mhm.
And that person that you saw at that bus stop, that was the best that they could do in that moment.
Yeah.
Especially now that you heard their circumstances, what had happened to
Mhm.
them, and that doesn't justify people doing these
No.
things. And accountability is important, we don't want to
Sure.
mention that too, but it just places understanding as to why do
Yeah.
people do evil things, why do people do
Mhm.
horrible things, when this world is about this incredible opportunity and a miracle that we are living,
Mhm.
yet this stuff still exists. And I want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about like darkness or evil, or like the yin part of this, the
Mhm.
darker part. What's your conception of that, and how do you navigate its intricacies in this like love being life that I see you live
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis?
It's plain and simple. My shadows are for me, and the love is for everyone else. That's how I do it. So, I don't show my shadows too often to people. Sometimes I do. To people I feel in the moment that it's appropriate for me to cry or to be upset, and then it comes out. But for the most part, it's like when those deep, dark demons, shadow aspects, nobody sees them. It's just for me. I enjoy it too. Like it's not gonna hurt me unless I consent to it, you know? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
real anyway. And
yeah, yeah.
I learned I had this lesson one time, and maybe we can see it, but like I'm putting my hands in like a bat, like a bat formation, right? And so now there's light on the couch, and I see a shadow of a bat, and I'm scared of bats.
Wait,
I'm
can you
like,
talk into the microphone? Sorry.
sorry. I see the shadow of a bat, and it's just my hands, but I'm looking at the couch, and I see the shadow, and I'm scared. I'm scared, but I realize I'm the one doing it.
Yeah,
That's my shot.
I see.
It's my hands
You're
doing it.
casting your own shadow,
Yeah.
therefore you are the one who wanted this to happen.
Yeah. So if I think in terms like that on the grand scheme, the consciousness,
Mm,
I'm not gonna hurt myself. Like I'm not gonna give myself, and the Bible says this too, God will never give you more than you can bear, and
yep.
that's the truth though. Like I know that I can take it. So, and I do go through things. I call them demons, but it's like these old thoughts of maybe suicide or relapsing because I'm sober. I don't drink alcohol, and they do come up. But it has no effect on me. I don't give it
Mm,
any power.
mm.
I entertain it sometimes because it is fun, and
Yeah,
I know that I need to release
yeah,
tears and stuff,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so I just let it,
yeah.
and there's been times I've been washing dishes and I just drop on the kitchen floor just crying and get back up and I start to laugh because I also through Hermeticism I've learned the law of polarity. There's everything has two polar sides. So whatever we want to ascribe, love and fear. Love is the one side and fear is the other side, but it's the same energy. And it's like, where do I want to be on this scale? Where do I want to be in this energy? On the love side or the fear side?
Right. And then once you go into that fear and you alchemize it, that's
Mhm.
when you turn it into love. And I think that's one of probably the most powerful experience known to man. Like going into your fears and transcending them and coming out the other side and being like, wow, like you're not the same person that went in,
Yeah,
right? In terms of,
sure.
you know, the limited being that you are has just improved substantially in your approach to life and the way you see life. And it's a more holistic perspective. Um, I love this phrase that I heard on a podcast once. It's like the dark light of God,
Mhm.
it's and people, I know this happens in a lot of Christian circles and a lot of Muslim circles. The ones I'm familiar with, really, Islam was that's where I grew up into, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Now I'm more of like a spiritual quote unquote
Sure,
person, which
sure.
is a funny label to have, which we've talked about before. But what I want to say about that sort of dark light of God is like, if your version of God does not include darkness, to me, that's not a complete picture
Agreed.
of the whole thing.
Agreed.
And that happens so often in
Yeah.
these monolithic religions, monotheism, where it's like, oh, like God is good. Yes, yes, God is good for sure. But
Mhm.
what do you mean by good? Because if the good doesn't include the bad, then it's
Yeah.
not good enough.
Yeah.
Because the good can include everything, and it needs the pain and the suffering and the growth and the stress to really to be complete, to have that other perspective, that duality to really come into play in order to realize that that other thing that I so deeply fear is just as part of me as the part of myself that I love so deeply. And integrating that is comes a long way in
Mhm.
understanding like who we really are fundamentally. So I think that is such an important perspective to have
Mhm.
and to not be afraid of it. I think um, when I recently I've been doing some shadow work. Did like a 5 gram dose of mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, in like the mountains of Lebanon.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to go internally, blindfolds, all of that. And my intention was to kind of explore my shadow, and the things that may have came up for me were just like my attachment to my family and just sadness that I'm away from them sometimes. And those are the just I had to release some tears. It really helps me cry when I do mushrooms, just release those emotions. um but here's the other thing, that is incredibly important and sacred process that I think most people don't do, while at the same time the most important part is that you don't identify with it. Do it all. Live your human self, go to the grocery store, meet a partner, have sex, get married, go to nature, go camping, take mushrooms, drink cacao, watch TV, play video games, whatever, become a carpenter, whatever it is you want to do, but don't identify with it as who you are.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you do, like, I know a lot of people in my life who like really got stuck in like the shadow work. Like they were like, oh, I'm doing shadow work. And a year later, they're like, oh, I'm doing shadow work. I'm like,
Yeah.
10 years later, oh,
They're
you're
like
still doing shadow work?
5 Dark Nights of the
Yeah.
Souls. It's like, what
Their
the
life is the dark night of a soul,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
completely.
I
And they've
agree.
lost themselves in it because they got captured by that energy in a way that they were like, oh, I got to do this thing. Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
do this thing. But if your life isn't moving in waves where it's
Yeah.
like you have highs and some lows and some highs, and if then first of all, it's not as interesting. But second of all, it's not as complete because you're too identified with one aspect, one, if you will, image in this gigantic infinite art piece that we are so intricately a part of.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there too. It reminds me of a friend of mine. He would always say, "Jose, you're a truth seeker," and I resonated with that. Yeah, I am a truth seeker. And then I came to realize years ago, the the more you seek truth, you're gonna find it. And I'm not a truth seeker anymore. I'm a truth. I found truth. I'm there. So in the
Yeah,
same token, healing.
yeah,
Yeah, there's aspects of me that I've healed, and there's some that I'm still working on. But seek healing, you're gonna get healed. And it's
yeah,
not a constant thing. I mean, I know they say there's a narrative in the spiritual communities about that, and sure, maybe it is for some people, but I've learned that if you really want something, you'll get it. And I can get lost in things too, in the esoteric stuff.
we all do. We all
Yeah,
get lost.
and I'm no better than anybody. It's just it is what it is. And I
Yeah,
like what you said though. Yes, do whatever you're gonna do because that's all you can do. And
yeah,
to me, I like to encourage people, just be authentic. Just be authentic, and that's authenticity is key in this world. And even Jesus hated the hypocrites. So
yeah,
it's like that's what I'm saying is like just be yourself, and just you don't have to be like anyone else. Just be
exactly,
you're
exactly.
perfect. We are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah,
And this is it, man. this is
yeah,
this is heaven right here.
this is it.
And
Heaven and hell are a place on earth almost.
sure. Head Vin and hell Vin my heel. It's like what area where am I at? It's yeah. So it's the duality, it's just like we get to choose, or I get to choose, where I stand and where I'm at. And to me this is heaven. And
Yeah, yeah,
But and again, non-duality, you know, I'm always there, but I'll communicate in dualistic terms. But non-duality, it's like there is no 5D, there is no 3D. It's just what
Yeah,
is happening now,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not even happening.
That's yeah.
Uh,
Woo.
all you know,
Slippery slope. That's when it's not even happening. Like that. That's where it gets really slippery for someone who maybe isn't well versed in these
for
ideas.
sure, for
Might
sure.
completely get lost off the track.
But you know what? I think that for those that it's gonna resonate, you know, even if they don't fully understand it, it activates something in it. Because I didn't
It does.
fully understand it, and I still fully don't understand it, but I
Yeah.
do understand when people say that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, it activated something in me, and it led me to this peace. This I'm in the moment, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to comment on was the authenticity piece that you brought up. Are you familiar? Have you heard of Gabor Mate by any chance?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with the word.
He's like a medical doctor that he used to be a medical doctor, and then eventually he realized that he wanted to get into like trauma therapy.
Mhm.
And some of the research that he's done and what he's found is like when people are growing up, when they're kids, they have two choices to make at every point in their life. And either they go towards authenticity or they go towards attachment.
Mm.
And a healthy person is able to kind of balance both. But as a kid, you have to sacrifice your authenticity at times for your attachment. And so what happens is like, let's say little Timmy, you know, goes over, knocks over a glass vase on the floor and it shatters on the floor, his mom's vase. His mom comes, Timmy, how could you do this? How could you shatter that vase? Like, I told you not to play in this area. And of course, Timmy, being the sensitive, vulnerable child that he is, starts crying. And he has no idea why his mom's crying because to him, he was just playing and he had nothing to do with the vase breaking. He was just having a good time. And that's where the perspective shifts for him because he realizes, like, oh, who I am, who I want to be in the world, this fun little creative, jubilant kid, it's not gonna get me to feel loved. It's not gonna get me to feel love from my parents, the people who deeply want to take care of me. And that's the first moment that little Timmy sacrifices his authenticity for attachment.
Mm.
That's
Okay.
that's kind of the, as if you will, the narrative origin story of where, for all of us, where it comes from. And then so people grow up and then they just, from that moment on, they just start to inhibit their authenticity more and more and more. Again, it varies from person to person. It varies also with parenting styles and how they raise their children.
Mhm.
But they grow up and they're like adults and they're still acting out like all their friends told them to act out as, and they've just lost who they are. They've lost their gut instinct and they don't no longer have that gut instinct because of that experience. And so, yes, their ultimate goal, little Timmy's ultimate goal, and little Timmy is in all of us. I truly believe that, is to come back to authenticity, come back to like, what do I really want right now? Who do I really want to be? Who do I really want to hang out with? Who do I really want to work as? And that's so fucking enjoyable. It's like if you act as yourself, I guarantee you, despite the challenges that initially come with, and I think that's very similar to like what you were talking about, the non-duality, like the discomfort that you initially start feeling in that process, like the loneliness maybe, but slowly people start to realize the truth that you're resonating. And it's like, holy fuck, man, this guy's just vibing out so hard. He's fully 100% him.
Yeah.
I want to be around him. I want to talk to him and I want to,
Yeah.
feel his energy and I want to share moments with him, her, whoever they are in the world. And I think that it's so important, that authenticity. And thank you for bringing that up because I know a lot of people listening, um, just act like other people, and it leaves them feeling this void when they go back home and they're like, I don't even know why, but when I was hanging out with this person, I came back and now I feel not as great. I don't know
Yeah.
why, what happened, but yeah, just come back to that true self, which is ever so close, closer than home.
Yeah.
It's right there sitting in the chamber of your heart, man, just sitting very nicely, just waiting for you to embrace it and cherish it.
I totally agree too, man. Like, you know, being authentic, yeah, it really does call in the people that are for you, you know. I mean, this doesn't make me popular. The Shivambu, the urine
Yeah.
therapy, it made me look weird to some people, and I don't care. You know, my phrase is love me or leave me. You know, that's fine. I'm okay. You know,
Yeah.
so being authentic has in the last few years, it's been proven to me that yeah, like the more that I talk about all this stuff and just open about it and just sharing who I am, just talking, just the way we have these conversations just like this, not on camera,
Yeah.
just like this,
Yeah.
and it's us being authentic, and yeah, it brought me to you, brought me to others, so
Man,
can't.
seriously, yeah, really grateful for you, by the way.
No,
Thank
I'm
you
grateful
for,
for you, man.
and all the people that we hang out with at Maya Moon, just the incredible beings that you met, that you meet there, and just
Yeah,
the conversations that we have. Moving on to Maya Moon,
sure,
actually, that'd be
sure.
a nice little segue. A nail in a sure place.
Yeah,
So, first of all, what is a nail in a sure place?
sure.
What does that mean to you?
Okay. So, well, first of all, a nail in a sure place is my musical name that I've chosen. I've always had an issue, and just for me, using my name as my band name. Like the Dave Matthews Band, I'll pick on. Like I always thought that was kind of goofy. Like, oh, that's messed up.
You want
Yeah,
something to be
yeah.
like creative, like
I don't.
a little more juice to it.
This name that was given to me, which I love, I'm
Yeah.
never gonna change it because my parents gave it to me. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Like Jose Perez, but a nail in a shirt place is an idea, and it's to me it's like a movement. So it doesn't have to have the Jose Perez name. It's like why a nail in a shirt place though. I'll explain. On my arm, my left arm, I'm pulling
So
on
that's
this
your
here.
artist name. Did you mention that?
Yes, that is my artist name for
Okay.
for music. So
Yeah.
on my arm, I have a tattoo that's in Hebrew. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is I'm not even gonna pronounce the Hebrew words because I'll just botch it up. But
Mhm.
in English, it's transliterated as I will fasten him as a nail in a place that is sure. And it comes from the Hebrew scripture in the book of Isaiah, chapter 22, verse 23. The context there is God is talking to the prophet Isaiah saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you guys a leader in the nation of Israel." And in context, he's talking about a guy named Eliakim. And people say, "Oh, he's talking about Jesus." I don't know. He's talking about Eliakim. Anyway, a nail in a sure place. So you had to put this stuff up here on the wall, like a mirror, and you drive a nail in there, and you put the mirror up, and then the mirror falls because the mirror's too heavy. Well, that's because maybe the nail wasn't in a stud, it wasn't in a sure place.
Mhm.
So I want to be a nail in a sure place where people can hang from me and
Yeah.
not have to worry about falling. So
Yeah.
it's more like integrity. It's more like support for
Yeah. Yeah.
others. That's been my life mission since 2010. A nail in a sure place.
Yeah.
That's when I started the name, and then it became more of who I am, or as far as who I want to be, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of a personality.
And I have to attest to this, man. When I hang out with you, it feels like you're a nail in a sure place. Like it's always Jose. Like I come in, I'm like, it's we talk about different things, of course. We're incredibly eccentric beings,
Yeah.
in this universe, but it's always Jose. Like I'm like, oh, he's that esoteric, divine, freaking being that he is. I'm like, yes, get to talk to him.
I love seeing you too, man. When
Yeah,
you
yeah,
walk in, it's all
yeah.
like same. I mean, like I said, we can only perceive what we are, really.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but yeah, so more about Nail in a Sure Place. So that's your artist name. So
Mhm.
you are a musician.
Mhm.
Can you share about what music you play?
Sure, sure. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I play acoustic guitar. And I started off by just writing my own songs, really. I played in many bands in the past, and I was a bass player, I was a guitarist, I was a whatever. And it's been fun, but I got tired of doing the band thing. And so I was like, I'm just gonna do it solo. So I didn't like doing cover songs, because, they just got kinda boring to me after a while, so, I know people like them, but I just started writing my own songs since 2010. My first song that I wrote was called "An Anthem for the Night," and it was about a dark time that I was going through, and that was my anthem for that time. And so
Mm,
from then on, I just started writing a lot of love songs. I say I'm a romantic because I am, and so I'll meet a girl or I'll fall in love with a girl, and then I'll write a song for her, then I'll show it to her, and then she'll like it, and then nothing happens. And
yeah,
it's like it's a constant, it's a theme in my life, and that's okay. It's just part of my journey.
yeah.
But nonetheless, I write a lot of love songs, but it wasn't until 2019. Magic is a part of my life too, so I do a lot of like magic rituals and stuff, and that's just me. And it's just fun for me. But I did this one spell that changed my life completely.
Mm,
Like it made me into the person I am today. And
yeah.
after that spell, I decided I'm going to be even more intentional with my music. So every song to me is a spell already in itself.
Ooh,
So I've used so much. I use so much energy and intention in my songs. And the first song that I wrote as a true spell, it's called "We Wish Her Well," and I wrote it for a friend that's far off in England. She lives in England, and it's for her, but it's also for the people that are that are doing the work, that are authentic and that are preaching without waving, or wavering. So anyway, there's reverse speech in that song, that if you were to reverse the speech, it says, one of the lines, it'll say, "You are the master of your life." So it's a spell. I'm essentially casting a psychological spell where the unconscious or the subconscious hears a phrase, and it doesn't matter if it's forwards or backwards, it'll plant in.
Wow, you think it
So
does?
yeah, yeah, that's at least that's what the research says. And so, "We wish her well." That phrase in itself, if you were to reverse it in audio, it says, "I worship you." So that there's intention behind all this. So
Yeah.
I became more intentional with my songwriting. Never malevolent. Let me just say that right now. Anything that I intentionally write for a spell, first and foremost, I feel that only I can be affected by it, unless somebody consents to it.
Mm.
So this to me, this world, this realm that we live in operates on intent and consent. So I intend to write these songs for positivity, to promote these truths. You are the master of your life. So yeah, I do stuff like that. And even the names, they have a gematria value, which is a numerological value, with numbers, and I use that as well. So there's a lot of energy put in my songs now, and it's totally shifted, but it's all original songs basically,
Nice.
to sum it up.
Yeah, yeah, super cool, man. Honestly, such a diverse being, and music. I've never heard this before, which is really fascinating because it just makes so much sense that music is a spell. Like you're casting spells on people, and that just makes so much sense because like I'm a DJ, so like when I'm DJing and I'm playing a good song and I'm in the vibe, I just look up and there's people dancing to the music that I just played, and I'm like, whoa, like there. I feel like a shamanic beat, like I'm shamanically inducing them to dance,
Right.
like, and it's always so funny to see that, like someone dancing to your music or like maybe moving along or singing along to your music.
Yeah.
So yeah, the spell, like, can we say you're a wizard?
No.
The Wizard of Oz?
I'll
I don't know.
I'll just
The
say that
fucking the Wizard of Mayamood?
I'll say that I'm just a magician. Like
That's
I love
cool.
magic. And I think if anything, I'm a gray magician. I'm in the middle path. Not black, not white, just in the middle. But yeah, it's all intentional, and I think words are spells. I mean,
Yep.
if you've ever looked into the English language and its association with maritime law and law of the sea, it's very interesting.
Please share more.
Sure, sure. So, before I share more, can I actually go ahead and use the restroom?
Sure, yeah. We'll
So,
we'll pause
yeah,
this.
I
Sorry.
figured we
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
That's why I paused too.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It looks less yellow than it was before, actually.
Yeah, the more that I loop it, as they call it, it filtrates it out even more.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so wait, let's get back into it.
Sure, sure.
All right, so we're back. So maritime law is what you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't, again, I don't dive too deep into things, but this is my basic understanding of this. Okay, so we have the English language, and there's a lot of words that correlate or associate with maritime law legalese words. Okay, so let's talk about let's look at a ship, right? So we have, first of all, we have relationships, right? We courtship, right? So we do these. We have all these different types of ships in our reality, in our experience, and then we have our birth, right? We are birthed just like a ship is birthed at a dock, and there's a doctor that delivers the baby, right? And so the manifestation is, and then we have a manifest on a ship. There's like all these words, like even like a bank. Where do we find a bank in nature? Is on a river where ships go through. And it's like, it's so interesting how all these different words that we use for our everyday life just correlate to this maritime law. So, or at least the words that are associated with maritime law.
Hmm.
Now, it's believed, and there's groups out there that talk about this, and they explain this way better than I can. But but they're saying that the English language is intentionally used to trap us into this realm of I don't know, commerce or realm of whatever, the economy, the all the things that were involved in capitalism, and it's like we're using our own words against us, or we're using these words to work against us.
Mm.
So if you ever look at like for example, like a bill or some type of letter from the federal government with your name on it, and it's in all caps, you know, there it's stated that, or it's brought up that like that is actually not you; it's just the entity that you represent. So there's the straw man, and then there's the actual natural man or woman, whatever. But it's a fictional person that this realm reacts to or interacts with. But as a person or whatever I am, I'm a living soul, or I'm a living person. I'm not that straw man. I'm not that all capital Jose Perez. I am a living person.
Mhm.
So even in the courtrooms, there's a lot of words and a lot of symbology in the courtroom, I guess, that
Mhm.
kind of represents the maritime law.
Mhm.
And so, anyway, I wish I can explain this even more, but not a lot of the things that I've learned about these words, it's more on that esoteric side. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so you know,
Yeah, language has a weird way of like showing you things. Like I think etymology is a lot of what you're kind of referring to. Like the root
some of it,
the root of
yes.
words is actually a lot more interesting than we pointed out to be. Like I was listening to this podcast the other day about divinity. They were talking about the word divine,
Uh-huh.
and divine, while may immediately strike you as something that is religious connotation or something that is, God or whatever, the actual etymology of divinity is really, really simple. It's basically that anything that allows one to transcend one's own limitations.
Anything that allows one to trans one's own limitations.
That's it. That
That's what it means.
that's it. That's what the root of the word means, divinity. And I'm not sure where it comes from, but that's what they said. And I was like, holy shit! Like, it's just like,
Mm,
we get lost in these words, and all of a sudden the word is a label. And now we have
sure,
these connotations for what this word means, and
sure.
it can misguide us, and it can guide us closer depending on
Yeah.
how we agree what the word means. And I think that's a lot of disagreements. That's where they come from, is through miscommunication. Like we were talking about simulation earlier, we're talking about video games. When people ask, like, is life a simulation? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah.
Is some like, kid in his basement loads up a screen and starts playing as you as their character?
Mhm.
Probably not.
Probably not,
I don't
no.
think that's what it is. But is consciousness, infinite, indescribable, infallible consciousness,
Mhm.
playing itself as you? As that is that the simulation? I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can subscribe to that a little bit for sure. So yeah, I mean, we can, words are, they're spells at the end of the day.
They are, and, like, there's a scripture, it says, "Life and death are in the power of the tongue," and the Apostle Paul said, "Be slow to speak," and I feel, at least, like the words that are so commonly used and even phrases are not really thought about. Like, for example, good morning. And it's
Mhm.
like you correlate morning with the
Death.
early day, right? But also morning
Yeah.
of a death
Yeah,
or
yeah.
morning of somebody, right?
Yeah.
So it's like casting that spell. Hey, I hope you have a good morning. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
That's like good and bad, because it's like, I
yeah,
hope you have a good death almost.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I like to use the word
People will
rising.
freak out if I go to, hey, how good
How
death?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
So and I know it's again, it's the intention behind it. It's also what we associate the words and what we agree to them to mean, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
we
yeah.
made these words up. I mean, this
Yeah.
is all made up.
It's all made up.
But nonetheless, I intuitively I choose to use like grand rising for that,
Yep.
I don't like the word belief because I don't have any beliefs. To me, I don't need to believe something to be true,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the divine. I don't need to believe in the divine. The divine is real for me, but nonetheless, be life. There's that word lie is right in the middle of it.
Mm,
Like I said, diet, die. It's like
yeah.
right in there for death.
Yeah. So you choose
So
to avoid those words.
I choose to be very intentional with the words I use. That's how I'll say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do avoid certain words, or
Yeah.
try to at least.
Yeah.
Even God, even bless you. God bless you. Well, it's like be less
I was
you.
about to ask you about that.
Yeah, be
Yeah.
less you. No, be great. I want you to be great.
Be great,
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Damn.
Honestly,
And wait, so what about when people sneeze? Bless you.
yeah.
How do you feel about that one? Because
I'll
that one always throws me off. When I'll be in class, so I'm in naturopathic school, and someone will sneeze, and then like literally like 30 people in like this like orchestral fashion will be like,
God bless you.
bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. And it comes in like this like wave, and I'm like, whoa, like what is going on? And of course, it's those mundane things that keep me interested in life because I'm like, what the hell is going on? But like, what's that all about? Why are people blessing themselves when they sneeze? Like,
You know, I
what's up with that?
I heard a long time ago that it's a belief that the one's soul is trying to escape the body or something like that. I don't know. So it's like bless you, like make sure he stays anchored. You're not leaving this realm.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but I used to be very weird about it, and I've become more lax with it now. It's like I don't care. I mean, I know what people mean by it. You could say good morning to me, or I'll say good morning sometimes. Not I try not to, but sometimes I do. But yeah, I don't know. I love words, and I'm trying to figure out the meanings. And I'm not talking about the etymology or the definitions, but the meanings of these vibrations that are coming out of my mouth. Like,
Mm,
so gematria. Are you familiar with gematria?
no.
So gematria is it's a tool. I feel it's a tool to associate letters and words with numbers. So, for example, A through Z would be 1 through 26, right? A is 1, B is 2,
Mhm.
etc. So, if you had the name Jose, which you have J is 10, O is whatever it is, I don't even know, but and then S and E, you add those up. If you add up Jose Perez, there's a gematria value of, I think it's 119, 119.
Interesting.
So that number is resonant with me. So in simple gematria, it equals 119. So that number for me, I see that a lot as a synchronistic number.
Mm,
Okay. So
mm,
there's other words that have certain values, and some of them value up to 666. And so nonetheless, nor good nor bad. I see it as a vibrational thesaurus. So, there's names that have the same value in certain gematria values
mhm,
of other things, and I
mhm.
can see why I like them. So it just helps me to decode this whole realm. And I'd have to show you like with the calculator that the internet has, but it's very interesting.
Yeah. I'll have
Yeah.
to check mine out, see what my Gematria value is.
Yeah. I'll show it to you. So 714 in English gematria, it's a different way to put numbers to the letters, but it equals Jose Perez equals 714 in English gematria, and then 119 in simple gematria. And so
Mhm.
those numbers I see a lot too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The name Sophia is 218 in simple gematria. I think it's simple, but yeah, 218. So that's a synchronistic number for me too.
Mhm.
And there's like, I think the letter X is 144 in simple gematria as well too, or English or Hebrew gematria. I think. But yeah, and I think it stems from the ancient Hebrews. This is a big technique to decode biblical or the Torah,
Yeah, yeah.
in ancient Hebrew. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
It does. Yeah, I feel like it gets deeper than maybe we even think it is. Like there's probably layers to this existence that we don't even know about, that these wise men, wise women encoded into the very nature of these texts.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that came up for me when you were talking about like words as frequencies
Mm-hmm.
was yesterday my friend Natasha in class was teaching us about bijas. So they're like the ohms, like the frequencies that like you say in yoga, like om
Ram,
or
Lam.
ram
Yeah, yeah.
lam. They're called bijas
Bija,
apparently.
I didn't know
Bijas, yeah. Mantras, I guess. They're maybe a form of
that.
mantra.
Sure.
I don't know, but anyway, so and then each one is coded to a particular chakra, and we were just talking about like the questionability of the chakra system, but but In fact, I think that moving past that chakra system part, just the resonant frequency of each one of them.
Sure.
Like if I just hit an om into the mic,
Mhm.
it's very different than if I did ram. Like there's a subtle difference there
Yeah.
versus like anything else that I would say.
Sure.
And I feel like the way she described it is that people, like she called them the people who wrote the Vedas. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure what kind of beings they were, but they channeled this stuff. Like no one really taught it to them. They just basically figured it out, like
Mhm.
intuitively.
Mhm.
And I find that to be very interesting because, if you've ever been in like a yoga class and everyone does an om together, there's a sense of vibration that is just freaking
Yeah,
radiating throughout the
absolutely.
room, right? And you just
Yeah.
like feel it in your body if you like embody that and you like sit there. And so that speaks to like what you're saying about with words. Like, yes, there's like the word and the meaning of each word, which is incredibly important, but then the vibration of each letter, of each sound, of each uh they call them like phonemes or just the sound of words. I forget. There's a word that.
Oh, homonyms? Or no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of like when two words have different meanings and sound the same.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I just mean like the sound of
the
each word,
phonetic.
the vibration, the
Yeah,
phonetic,
yeah.
the sound of it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think like every word has its own vibrations,
Yeah.
and I wonder if we can tap more into that as humanity to bring higher vibrational things into our existence, or are all words just bound to fall into the trap of identification? And therefore, let's say God, perfect example for that word. Maybe because you said you grew up in like a Christian household and
Well,
teachings.
I have a Christian background. I didn't grow up in a Christian household
Oh,
though.
okay. So you
Yeah,
have a Christian
yeah,
background,
yeah,
but like the word God, like it's been totally bastardized and
yeah.
demonized over the generations. In fact, I don't think there's a single word that's more demonized and bastardized than that word God. But fundamentally, like it seems to mean something so profound, and I'm sure there's a reason why people really came up with that word as opposed to another word. And so yeah, just not to fall into that trap of like it's just a word, don't
Yeah,
identify with it.
yeah.
You are consciousness, remember that.
No, no, you're right. And like my experience with the Christian church, went a little salty, we'll say, like at one point in my journey. And I disassociated with the church and with God and with the idea of God. I considered myself an atheist at one time. And I didn't like to use that word, and that was my traumatic experience, associating that with the word and not
Right,
wanting to face it.
right.
So now it's like the way I explain it now is like it's a frequency. So the God frequency is what I call it. I'm back in it. Like I use it intentionally. And it is just a word. It really is. It means nothing. But
Again, yeah.
yeah, but I put the meaning to
It's
it.
funny when you say it means nothing because for that particular word,
Hmm.
it almost has a double entendre for what you just said.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
catch that?
yeah. It does. Yeah,
I'm not gonna explain it for the listeners, but if you know, basically.
yeah.
But
If you know, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to I wanted to read a couple quotes from Rumi.
Sure.
I know you love Rumi, and one of your cats, his name is Rumi.
Yeah.
Is it what kind of color is the cat? Just so people can visualize
So
this cat.
she's a silver tabby and she's a female. So
Okay.
yeah, she's a silver tabby. She's very fluffy. She's the cutest little girl ever too, but she's
Oh,
very, very particular with people and she could be mean to people. But
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so I would love to. I haven't met Rumi yet, but I would love to meet her.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's also funny that it's a female, and Rumi was a dude.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you ever sit down and trip out like, oh man, my cat?
I named her Rumi.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I knew about Rumi and I intentionally wanted a female cat and name
Interesting.
her Rumi.
That's so
Yeah.
fascinating. Nice,
I just
nice.
thought it was a cute name for a female cat. Like
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe Rumi is a female name as well. I'm just not like
No, no, no.
beknownst to that fact, But I have these quotes, and I want to read maybe just a couple of them, and I
Sure.
want to just get Jose's take on these.
Okay.
Are you ready? So
Sure.
we'll go to the first one. This is actually one of my favorite ones. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that one before. And I agree with that. It's because the external world is just a projection for me. It's just it's a reflection or a projection of me is how I see it. So the only thing that I can control is myself. And so as I change myself, I start to see that being projected outside of me, as within, so without. That's how I kind of interpret that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. I mean, in a sense, you are the world, right? Like the
Sure.
world is seen through your perspective.
Mm.
So, I mean, if you change yourself, that same
Yeah.
object, that same thing that you're looking at, all of a sudden doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
changed, Also makes me think about like there's this Hawaiian practice called Hopo Ono. Have you heard of
Hopo
this?
ono ono or something.
Hopo Ono
Yeah.
Ono or
Yeah.
something like that, which basically is like if there's anyone that in your life that you feel like you hold resentment for, or did something to you, or something along those lines. Hopo Ono Ono basically means that you say with intention, just to yourself. It's a practice where you just basically say, I forgive you, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. In no
Mm.
particular order to
Mhm.
that person that you hold that feeling for. And you just do that basically. I don't know how many times you do it, but you just do it.
What is
And
it again? I forgive you.
I forgive you, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you.
Okay. I like that. That's kind of cool.
And there's been a lot of stories that I've heard people talk about online and in my personal life where they did that to that person, and then some weird synchronicity happens where that person like texts them like later that day saying like, I'm sorry, like I just want to come back into like they reach out to them after having not talked to that person for so long
Yeah.
after they've done this practice. Maybe there speaks like the quantum or whatever you want to believe in, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like synchronicities do happen. I think that once you allow love and that kind of frequency into your life, that the universe like rewards you in a sense, like, yeah, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So that was our first one.
All right.
Let's chop it up. um about this one: raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder.
That reminds me of you catch more flies with honey.
You
you know,
catch more flies with honey. I like
yeah.
that.
Raise your words, not your voice. Yeah. I like that. I mean, that's kind of something that I feel like I do. Be more intentional with my words. I try to be slow to speak. In conversation, it's easy to flow with you and others. That I think are very similar. So, what was the last part of that quote, though?
It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder.
Yeah. So that reminds me of another scripture too. Be angry and sin not. Don't sin, but be angry. You don't need to.
Lash out,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
crazy on it.
It's quite all right to have these emotions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Builds that holistic picture that we were talking about, the complete beingness, of every
Yeah.
human being.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, me neither, man. And let's maybe end with one more. I love this one. This one actually, just to give a little context, so that mushroom trip that I did in Lebanon that I was telling you about,
Mhm.
where it was my friend makes these mushroom chocolates, and it's actually one of the quotes that's on there. And the quote is, "The wound is the place where the light enters you."
The wound is the place where the light enters you. It's a cool quote because it like not to be have a share a pun, but like it puts a new light on the wound. Like it's like it's not a marking, or it's not something on your body that was caused for harm, but it was more for entering more light or entering something more good. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it puts a new perspective on wounds and the things that we go through or we
yeah,
experience. It's a good one too. I've heard that one before.
yeah. Like it was meant to be there for the light, as opposed to anything else that you think it is. Like
Yeah.
transmute it, bring it back into maybe what it wants to be. It just wants to be accepted and processed,
Hmm.
and that's that processing process
Hmm.
is the light entering you in that way.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
So, just regarding Rumi, real quick,
Yeah.
like I don't even believe he existed. I had to throw that out there to you because I was thinking about it. I I swear I don't. So
Oh
I
my
just
god,
know that
that's
like
so funny.
when I started getting sober, when I when I got sober, I came across Rumi quotes and it just popped into my existence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then like
yeah,
I started researching, oh, he's 13th century Sufi poet,
yeah,
this and that. And I'm
yeah,
like, I can't prove that. How did these writings that are so
yeah.
pertinent to this day like last this long? And then there's so many different interpretations of it.
Yeah,
Like the more that I dive deep into the whole Rumi thing, there was so
yeah,
much controversy behind it. And there's groups of people that say that he didn't exist.
yeah, yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, I don't believe anybody in history existed really, but
yeah.
nonetheless, it just feels so good though. Like
It does.
the
It resonates,
it
and that's the
resonates.
most important part.
Exactly.
But that is like the funniest way to end like this podcast is like after I just read Rumi quotes to this man, he just tells me like, by the way, I don't really think this guy ever existed. Meanwhile, like thousands of Islamic scholars like base their entire careers on this man's life. Some
Do they?
guy's entire library is composed of Rumi. In fact,
Which guy?
I mean, I'm just saying, like
Oh, you're
some
saying.
guy out there.
Uh,
In fact, I think Rumi is the number one literary author in the United States today.
is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
So a
If
Sufi poet is the most number one in the United States.
in the United
Wow,
States today, I
wow,
heard that recently, and
that's so funny.
confirmed that. But he doesn't exist, according to our
Wow.
calculations.
In my calculation, at least, Shakespeare don't believe he existed either. The
Yeah, yeah,
writings are
yeah,
there. The writings exist right here, and and this is the here and the now.
yeah,
that's what I mean by that.
yeah, yeah.
Not to pick on
I know
Rumi.
what you mean. I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
not to pick on
I
Rumi
was poking
because
fun at it.
Cause,
Yeah.
because those quotes like really helped me and comforted me during the crazy time in my life,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I wanted to name my cat after
Oh,
that. Yeah, so
I see that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's something about these like deep quotes that I think speak louder. Back to that like it is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And I think that like you can read as many nonfiction books about whatever spirituality, life, self help books, but I think the true wisdom and the true knowledge is in fiction. It's in story. It's in storytelling. And the greatest story that ever told, arguably so, the Bible.
yeah, yeah,
It's incredible story, incredible archetypal story of these forces of nature that exist that have some kind of bearing on this existence, yet we can't really feel them, but we believe in them and we tell their stories over and over and over again. And yeah, again, whether you believe Rumi existed or
mm.
not, it resonates.
It
And
resonates. I don't
that's
believe the
that's
Bible
that's the
is
good
true
stuff.
either, but it resonates with me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I want to encourage or ask you, would you be willing to just search one Rumi quote real quick?
For sure.
Just search "Dance Inside My Chest" Rumi and see and read that quote.
Dance inside my chest,
Yeah,
Rumi.
yeah. Or the phrase is "You dance inside my chest," but if you just
It's
search
a
that,
full quote, or is it like a poem?
it's a poem, but it's like
Okay.
you
Well,
found it.
there's a line. I can
Sure,
read the
go
line. Okay,
please.
so it says, "You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art."
Yeah, yeah. I love that one.
Woo!
That's one of my favorites. Yeah, and
That just wraps it all together.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art. Man, he's so good at like this back and forth of like duality. No, we're one. Don't duality. Oh, we're one. Like
Right.
he like paints it in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Um, man, I've actually never heard that one before.
That's my favorite one.
Wow.
I have a song that I've been writing for many years, and I'm using that quote in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow, man, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Shit. That was so
absolutely.
so good. Well, I think it's a good time to bring this podcast to a close. Would you maybe let the people who are listening, who are watching to this, anything you want to leave them with, and where they can find you, maybe like social media and stuff, if they want to reach out?
Sure. Well, you can find me if you look right in the mirror because I am you. But if you ever want to find me in person, you can find me at Maya Moon Collective in San Diego. I'm usually hang out there on social media at jperez1020. That's my Instagram handle and I think Facebook too. But I would like to just say this: whoever you are, wherever you are, You bring value to this world. You bring value to people. People love you, and you are perfect the way you are. Just keep up the great work. And thank you for being you. And that goes to you too.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. Honestly, I really do.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
I'm excited to. Thank you. Thank
Alrighty.
you for having me. I
All
appreciate
right.
it, brother.
Thank you. Later, guys. See you soon.